Autumn slowly gave way to winter. The leaves drifted one by one from the great cedar tree, covering the lawns of Haydon in rich shades of gold, red and brown. Morning frosts sparkled across the cricket field, while thin wisps of smoke rose from the school chimneys as the kitchens prepared warm breakfasts. Life carried on, much as it always had at Haydon. Lessons filled the mornings, games occupied the afternoons. Evening prep was followed by stories, laughter, and mugs of hot cocoa in Ash House before lights out. Haydon remained a school where tradition was respected. The older boys still knew that a visit to the headmistress's study could end with the sharp sting of the thin rattan cane, while younger boys were more likely to be reminded of their behaviour by the sight of the well-known black and red carpet slipper that rested in her cupboard. Fortunately, such punishments were becoming less common, for most boys preferred to keep well clear of either. To everyone else, Haydon appeared to be an ordinary boarding school. Only 4 boys knew that its greatest treasures lay hidden beneath their feet. One Saturday morning, Miss Blyton quietly invited Peter, David, Simon and Andrew to the hidden library beneath the chapel. The ancient green book rested peacefully upon its stone pedestal. For several weeks, it had remained silent. Peter smiled. Perhaps we've solved all its mysteries. Miss Ashcombe laughed softly. I've learnt never to assume that. Almost as though it had heard her words, the green book slowly opened. Fresh writing appeared across the page. Every keeper must make a promise. The boys looked at one another. Another sentence slowly formed. Not a promise to the school. Then another. A promise to one another. Miss Blyton looked thoughtfully at the 4 friends. I wonder why? Miss Ashcombe answered gently. Because buildings can stand for centuries. But friendships need care every single day. The book quietly turned another page. A beautiful drawing appeared. It showed the great cedar tree. Beneath its branches stood 4 figures with their hands resting against the great trunk. Below the picture were simple words. Meet where every story began. That evening the 4 boys crossed the quiet school grounds. The great cedar stood alone beneath a sky filled with stars. Its enormous branches stretched over the chapel like welcoming arms. Peter rested his hand upon the rough bark. This tree has seen everything, Miss Ashcombe smiled. It was planted before the first pupil ever arrived. It has watched every generation come and go. David glanced back towards the warmly lit school buildings. It's seen every triumph, and probably every trip to the headmistress after someone earned the cane. Simon grinned. Or the famous black and red slipper. Andrew laughed quietly. I'm very happy for the tree to remember those stories without us adding to them. Miss Blyton smiled. A sensible attitude, gentlemen. One by one, the boys placed their hands upon the ancient trunk. The lantern hanging from David's shoulder began to glow softly. Golden light spread through the bark. Tiny carved names slowly became visible once again. Hundreds of keepers, hundreds of years, hundreds of stories. Then something new appeared. 4 empty spaces. Peter looked towards Miss Ashcombe. They're waiting. She nodded. They have always been waiting. The green lantern floated gently into the air. Its warm light surrounded the 4 friends. Without anyone speaking, each understood the promise he wished to make. Peter spoke first. I promise to protect Haydon and its history. David smiled. I promise to use what we've learnt to help others. Simon looked around at his friends. I promise to choose kindness whenever I can. Andrew nodded. And I promise that no one in our friendship will ever have to face life's difficulties alone. As the final words were spoken, the cedar tree almost seemed to sigh in the gentle evening breeze. 4 new names slowly appeared beneath the older carvings. Peter Lawson, David Mercer, Simon Reed, Andrew Collins. The boys stared in amazement. Miss Ashcombe smiled proudly. The tree remembers. Just then, a familiar voice called from behind them. "I hoped I'd find you here." Mrs. Bellamy walked across the lawn, carrying a large basket. "I thought 4 explorers might appreciate some hot chocolate." The boys laughed. Mrs. Bellamy looked curiously towards the great cedar. "It always feels peaceful here." Peter smiled. "It really does." Although she could not see Miss Ashcombe, she somehow sensed another gentle presence nearby. She rested one hand upon the old trunk. "What a wonderful tree," she whispered. Miss Ashcombe smiled warmly. "I always knew she'd understand." The 5 of them sat beneath the cedar, drinking steaming hot chocolate and eating freshly baked ginger biscuits. The lantern rested quietly beside them. No mysteries needed solving. No hidden passages waited to be explored. For once, simply being together was enough. Peter looked around at his friends. "I've realized something." "What?" Simon asked. "When we first discovered the hidden tunnel, I thought the greatest adventure would be finding secret rooms." David smiled. "And now?" Peter looked towards the warmly lit windows of Haydn. "I think the greatest adventure has been finding where we belong." Miss Ashcombe's eyes shone with quiet happiness. "Every keeper eventually discovers that." In the distance, the school clock struck the hour. "If we're late returning," Simon said with a smile, "Miss Blyton might think we've forgotten the rules." "And none of us wants to spend tomorrow explaining ourselves in the headmistress's study," Andrew added. "I've heard enough about that thin rattan cane and the black and red carpet slipper to last a lifetime." Miss Blyton gave them an amused look. "Then I suggest we all return before anyone has reason to fetch either." The boys laughed and gathered their things before walking back towards Ash House. Far away, beyond Ashcombe Wood, the mysterious 5th Watcher stood upon a low hill overlooking the school. The silver raven brooch caught the moonlight. The old guardian smiled as the chapel bell echoed softly across the valley. "The circle is safe," the Watcher whispered, "not because of its secrets, but because of the hearts entrusted to keep them." Above Haydn, a flock of ravens wheeled silently through the clear winter sky, before disappearing amongst the stars, while the ancient cedar tree continued its timeless watch over another generation of boys, guarding not only its ancient secrets, but also the friendships, traditions and memories that made Haydn a place none of them would ever forget. Watch over another generation, ready for whatever adventures the future might bring.